What is up, my lovely people in Blue Tablet land? So for today's video, guys, I'm going to be drawing y'all this creepy looking witch. If that's something you guys are interested in, stick around and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is start out by drawing her eyes. And I kind of wanted to give her these haggard looking eyes, and almost like as if she was half awake, half asleep, but still ready to go around and fly around the town and mesmerize everybody with these witch spells and all the creepy stuff that she does. So I drew her eyeball, and I kind of took that little chunk out to make it look more artistic. And then I gave her these little bags on top of her eyelids, so it kind of looks like, she's got these wrinkled age-old eyes where she's been using them to look at spells over the years and just add to the creepiness of her. Good old witches. So I think the first time I ever seen a witch in an anime was in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is a really old anime at this point. But I think what was really cool is the fact that when the queen had to go to her spell room to kind of figure out how she would disguise herself, it was kind of cool to see how she started talking about this potion that she wanted to make and how she had to mix the ingredients and everything into this chalice or glass, was it? I can't remember. I think it was some sort of a glass, kind of like almost looked like a wine glass. And then she was like looking at it, and then suddenly the actual potion had all these bubbles, and it was just frothing and fizzing and all that, and then she kind of drinks it, and then all of a sudden she starts changing and morphing, and then until finally you see this haggard little lady which has got this big old wart in her nose, and I'm like, whoa, that is ugly. But I think, that was a interesting point to find out what exactly, or at least an interesting point in the anime to find out what a witch was. Back when I was in art school many years ago, we had a class called character design, and this class was beautiful and amazing in the aspect that it kind of taught you how to conceptualize, do thumbnails. And initially I never knew what thumbnailing was, and I never heard about the concept before until I asked one of the students or my classmate that was sitting next to me, and I was like, hey, a quick question. I was like, what's thumbnailing? And he's like, what do you mean you don't know what thumbnailing is? And I'm like, no, because I was like, I've never heard the term before. I mean, I kind of described what I think it was, and he's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I was like, oh, okay, because back in India, in Kuwait, when we did drawing classes, or we had a drawing class, the actual term was never really not discovered, but actually spoken to us about. It was just kind of like, the professor or the teacher at the time would just say, draw out some rough sketches, and then we'll kind of narrow it down as to which character you're going to actually be finalizing and actually designing. So I think that process of the designing of any character is very important, because at that stage, you're just doing some really rough sketches, and you can start out with 5 and go to 10 and 20. And then slowly but steadily, you'll kind of see what one has, and then you'll like what the other one has, and then you slowly start narrowing it down until you actually finalize what the actual one's gonna be like. So there is another YouTuber that I watch when I'm not recording, and his channel name is called Draw Sessions. And this guy is a professional character designer, and his teachings on his channel are really beautiful, amazing, and very in-depth. Because what he does is he just draws along, and he just narrates his process as to what exactly he's drawing. And he talks about the different types of character design, how thumbnailing is so important. And I think I found his channel purely by mistake, I think it must have been one of the recommended videos, kind of like what shows up on the right hand tab. And I really learned a lot from watching his channel, And I think when it comes to creating art, you can always learn from other artists and learn different techniques and things that you possibly didn't know. But for the most part, I think it is, you also have to keep at it and practice day in and day out. I mean, nobody's saying that you got to draw every day, which it would be nice if you could, because anything you practice, you'll always get better and better. And drawing is no different. So for me, what I do to keep that drawing hand and mind and all sharp and clear is I always have a little drawing book with me. And whenever I feel the urge to draw something, or if some idea just sparks something in my mind, I just kind of either write it down, or I draw about it, or write about it sometimes, and then just see how I can take that idea forward and actually create something from it. It might be something as simple as just watching a branch on a tree, or just maybe a bird flying, or something from the day. It's amazing how all that thing can all that information can kind of be stored in your head, and then when you're drawing, those things kind of just come out naturally as you're drawing it. So I think definitely when it comes to drawing, you got to definitely keep at it and not stop improving yourself and improving your skills. So for her, I wanted to keep her goofy looking, creepy looking, and I looked at a bunch of other drawings of witches that were done by other artists, and I wanted to see what is it that I could come up with, because for me, usually I don't draw Halloween characters, or I don't draw witches. It's like my thing that I enjoy drawing the most, which is on my other channels, is skeleton and skull related art. So this thing is a nice change of pace, in the aspect is it's drawing humans, or drawing anything that's got muscle mass, or anything for that matter, is kind of cool. Because if I'm drawing skeletons, all I'm thinking of drawing is something on the lines of bones. And this is kind of just going a step further. Actually, it is a step further by drawing muscles and drawing different elements of the human anatomy. Another skill that I think is really cool and very important to learn when you're drawing characters is definitely how to convey emotion. There are so many different emotions. Like in this one, she's kind of has that creepy looking smile about her. She's got these big old beady eyes. She's got as I said, the creepy smile, those really messed up looking teeth, and then her hair's all messed up. So that kind of all ties into the whole character and what you're trying to convey, or maybe if it's a sad character, how something would be illustrated as something being sad or something being happy. So I think definitely conveying emotion in a character, whether it be a witch, or whether it might be a ghost, or whether it might be a goblin, or anything for that matter, I think really tells the story to the end viewer, the person that's watching. But if you can get that down, it's really helps with telling your story, I guess, as to what is it your character is trying to convey, whether it's sadness, whether it's happiness, whether it's joy or excitement. And so I think that definitely comes with time. And there are so many videos on YouTube which you can possibly look up and maybe watch and see how to convey them in the best possible way. I don't know if you guys noticed, but these small little indents that keep happening in the line every time I'm drawing was kind of really annoying when I was actually doing this illustration early on today. And what ends up happening is you see how it happened over there? The pencil is linked to the tablet, so when you do a restart and or reboot your tablet, it's a good idea to disconnect the pencil and then have it reconnect back on, because apparently, I guess when you do the restarting of the tablet, it somehow messes the Bluetooth connection with the actual stylus or the pencil and the tablet. So if that's something you guys have come across, I mean, that's what I did to help it. Or the other thing you could do is the actual pencil tip actually unscrews. So what I do is sometimes I'll unscrew the nib and just kind of blow on it a little bit. And if there's any fuzz or little dust or anything that might be touching the actual contact point, that kind of also does this thing. Having a screen protector on your tablet, whether it might be an iPad or Android or anything of that sort, also affects this whole skipping of the pencil. And I kind of figured that out using both a matte screen protector and a glass screen protector. But after using both of them, I kind of went with the glass screen protector. And if you're probably wondering why, it's just to have that added security and that peace of mind knowing that, that I might not scratch the actual screen, and then I might be in a real problem situation, because then the skip would happen because the scratch is actually on the screen. But apparently these screens are built really tough, and there have been other artists that have actually tried and tested them out, but I'm too scared to have to figure that out on my own. So now for the coloring part, I figured I'd turn the background down to a gray from the original white, what it usually is. And then I started out with this lime green for her face. And then figured I'd do some sort of like a creamish color for her eyeballs. And then for her eyes, figured I'd go with like that nice universal Halloween kind of themed yellow for the eyes. So it kind of gives her that nice witchy feel. So I figured I'd try a purple color for her hair. For her hat, I meant. And I was not really sure if the purple I chose would actually show up well on the camera. So it was just kind of like a test with this darker purple for the inside of the hat. And then for her hair, I kind of wanted to be something bright. So I thought I'd go with orange, but then I was like, nah, it looks too bright. So I've changed it up to like this, I don't know what this color is. It's kind of like a grayish tone of the orange. So I think that looked good for like, giving her like that nice gray hair kind of look. These little yellow little niblets for her earrings. And then the same color for the teeth that her eyeballs are. And then for the inside of her mouth, I figured I'd just do like a darker shade of the green, so it kind of matches her whole face, so it'd be easy when it came time to the shading. For a buckle, I did this yellow color, which is the same one I believe as the eyes, and I just fill the darker purple for the buckle on the inside, so that would be the inside of the hat's fabric. And now for the shading, I'm just gonna do my old technique which I've done in the previous videos, which is using the blackish color of the line art, turning down the opacity to about 40. Well, actually I did it to 30 first, and then later on changed it to 40 because it was kind of looking too light. I really like this technique of shading because it makes dropping the shading down so much easier. And if you ever need to change up the colors, you don't have to think too much about it. You just select the color you want to change, and then boom, just change it out, and the shading automatically transfers onto that color. You remember, guys, I was talking about learning techniques from different artists. This shading technique is definitely something that I wish I'd known a long time ago, that I learned from an artist on YouTube. And my gosh, this thing would have saved so much time on my other illustrations that I've done in the past. Because what I would do usually in the past would be I would try to manually choose the color from the color wheel to see what would be the best shade for that color. And the only reason I did that is because when you're doing traditional art, there is no color wheel to choose from to change out the hue, the saturation of anything or any of the colors. So you got to manually see which color looks good. and then just run with it, but when you're doing it digitally like this, and you're able to adjust the opacity and get the shadow perfect, it's a big time saver, especially like if you're working on a project for a client and they're really picky about what the color would be, and how the shading would do it, or how the shading would actually not do it but actually turn out at the very end. This technique helps a lot because, say, supposing for example you're drawing something and the client wanted a specific shade of green. Now in this situation over here, I chose this green, and say if they wanted something darker or lighter, all you would have to do is just change out the flat color to the green that they want, and boom, your problem's fixed. But now if you did it the old way, you would have to manually delete out the actual shading layer and then start from scratch, which would waste a whole lot of time. So I think the takeaway from all of this would be is, if you find a technique that another artist is using, try it and use it and see if it helps you save time, and if you've learned something new, and if it does do what it says it's supposed to do, then you've just added something and learned something for free from another artist, and just share that information with somebody else, or maybe to a new artist, and maybe it'll help their day be less stressful when they're creating an illustration, and they might learn something new. So another technique how I use this is, I'll make one layer and do the shading with the opacity down to about 40%. And then for the next layer, what I'll do is I can either lighten it up or darken it up. So I would either bump it up to 50 or take it down to 30. So then what ends up happening is you have this gradual gradient look on the layer that you're shading, so you don't have to really use an airbrush tool. When it comes to art, there are so many techniques that you can learn over a period of time. Shading is just by far just one of them, and then you have the whole halftone effect, which is another cool effect that most t-shirt designers use. And what it pretty much is you just take these small little dots and you vary them in size. You'll start out from a really small kind of dot, and then you'll slowly work it up to a little bigger size and a medium size, and then finally till it's big. And when you apply this to the illustration, if you have for example like the green color, it'll actually look like there's shading going on, when in reality it's nothing. It's just the illusion on the eye that makes it look like there's a shade going on, so it would look like the gray has like a darker layer of green, and then it's kind of slowly fades off into a lighter green. And that's something you can use if you ever do t-shirt design. And that's something I think I learned that also online through another YouTuber. And I used to always wonder how they get that that nice gradient look by just using just one color, and I didn't really know what the term was until I heard them talking about half-toning or half-tone. So that's that. But if you guys come across something that you like, just keep in mind to practice on it till you get good, and then just move on to the next thing, and then the next thing, because as I said, there's so many techniques. For me also, I'm still learning every now and then. I'll learn something new from another artist, and then what I'll do is I'll practice it on something that I'm drawing traditionally and see if I can use that same skill. There are some things you can use digitally, and then there are some things you can use traditionally, but the best would be is if you can take that technique and use it in the digital world as well as in the traditional world, depending on the illustration that you're working on. The selection tool is another tool that Procreate has, which is really useful. So for this over here, what I did was I selected the hat, and you see these little lines that are going on outside the actual illustration. That's the part where none of the shading will go outside this purple area. So what ends up happening is it makes your shading process quicker, and you can get a whole lot done and shaded quickly without having to be concerned that it's going to go past the layer or past the point that you're actually shading on. And then another way of doing this is you can actually use the selection and actually draw out the selection onto the area that you want shaded, and then all that you do or all that you're shading will stay within that selection area. So that's another technique. And I guess it depends on the type of illustration that you're doing. If you're doing something that's really shading intense, using the selection helps and makes it quicker. But if it's something that you're just shading that's just a small area, then by all means, just manually do it and just watch as you get closer to the edges, so that way the shading doesn't go past the line art and onto the actual background that you're drawing. When I was deciding to do this Halloween playlist before Halloween came along, I kind of had my thought process in the aspect of, or I was thinking that, I'll keep each of these videos really concise and really brief. But it's amazing how when you do an illustration and the shading just takes a whole lot of time to actually get it done, like all of these videos, the plan was to actually keep them within 10 to 15 minutes long. But for some odd reason, most of them have been way past the 15 and 20 minute marks. So, it's, I guess I misjudged how long each would take. And I think going forward, for the next playlist, I'm kind of thinking of something that'll not be so intense, but something that'll be, well, definitely not 30 days. But if I do decide to do something that's on the 30-day calendar or trying to talk, a playlist that has 30 days, I'll probably do it way ahead of time and then schedule it, so that way it doesn't become so overwhelming. As of right now, what's happening is each video that I put out, I kind of work on it either the day before or on the day itself. So it's just a big challenge to have to record it, do the voiceover, and then kind of explain to you guys what's going on. And ideally, I would like to have done it where I can actually narrate while I'm drawing. But because the phone only has a set time limit as to how long it can record, I kind of have to do it this way, where I do the drawing first and then just kind of do the voiceover and kind of narrate to you guys what exactly it is I was doing when I was doing the illustration. Sometimes I just think about, the artists that work at Disney or Pixar or any of the animation studios, and just think how much time probably goes into each character drawing, each shading, each set creation. It's amazing because of all the colors that I used and how each thing has got to be synced up with the next set or the next frame. So I think all of that really is some really intense work, and you gotta really be thankful to the people that do it. And I know at some point when I'd first gone to art school many years ago, I'd actually gone for animation, art, and design, which was actually the major. But when I got to the part which was the 2D cell animation, I just could not see myself doing that, especially after watching a few of my other colleagues and classmates having to do it. And I kind of just looked at it and I was like, what? I love drawing, but I don't know if I would have the patience to draw out 20 to 30 cell animations of a particular character doing its thing, So that's when I kind of looked into interior design. And that's honestly what I wanted to do at some point, which is I was just thinking maybe I could design rooms and, these rooms that you see in these big penthouses up in New York City and stuff like that. That's what I thought I would like to be doing, And then also the professor that I was speaking to at the time told me that, interior design can also be used to design private jets. And I was like, that sounds more interesting. How cool would it be to be the designer that's responsible for designing a private jet, because each one of them has got their very own uniqueness to it. You know, some have got these nice exquisite leather that they use, and then they have these flat screen TVs. I mean, it's just amazing when you think about design, art, and everything that goes along with it. I mean, like, you know, there's so much thought and process and put into all these things. So I don't know why I was rambling about interior design and all that, but just thought I'd tell you guys about it too now that I'm doing this illustration, you know. Because, I mean, you know, when you're drawing, I mean, your head's in the illustration, but then sometimes your mind just kind of wanders off, and that's exactly what my mind is doing at this very moment. I think this illustration has been by far the longest illustration I've done for this playlist, and I think the ones following, I kind of need to work on my time and delivery so that way it doesn't get so intense and so long. But you know, all in all, I mean, it's a good learning experience, you know, when you do each of these illustrations. At least for me it has, you know, because each character and each prop that I drew, I kind of looked into what is it I wanted to draw, you know, what is the illustration style I kind of wanted to show with each of them. And with this one, I mean, it's not just about illustrating the face and the character and the emotions, but it's also to show the user or the end user, you know, how you can illustrate fabrics and, like, you know, kind of show them in, well, what it would look like in a digital perspective. But all in all, I think, yeah, you know, this illustration's been coming out nice. I mean, yes, it is long, but I've had fun for the most part of it, like, you know. And, like, you know, the best part about actually the illustration is once you are slowly getting towards the end and you look at each line that you make and each stroke that you make is coming closer to wrapping it up. It's kind of cool to think, like, you know, that this originally was just like a pencil rough sketch, and then you finally, like, you know, tweaked it, and it's finally, you know, coming to the end where, you know, all of it's all coming together. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this video up by saying thanks for following along and drawing. To all the followers and my new followers, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.